how Victortheinspiration.com came to play. How did I come up with that? Why Victortheinspiration.com? I'll tell you. Anyhow, first, before I mention how Victortheinspiration.com came into fruition, I have to first explain where Victor the Inspiration, the name, came from. Anyhow, long story short, I was brainstorming on different Instagram names, and this is basically where it all started. And I started thinking of brainstorming different names. A lot of people, I can't remember exactly if I was reading like a message, if there was like a person or something that made me think about this. But anyhow, I started just brainstorming different names. Me personally, I wanted my personal brand to have my first name, which is Victor. And anyhow, so I started brainstorming different names. A lot of people have told me I am very positive. They look up to my positivity and how I basically perceive life and how I continue to fight through life. Anyhow, so I started thinking about, first off, the word positivity came into thought. And then I thought about Victor and positivity put together, which is Vicspivity. To me, that was really, really cool. Then I started thinking a little more. And I thought about, a lot of people have told me, I'm very optimistic. They admire my optimism and how I'm hopeful for the future. And anyhow, so I thought about victimism, which is Victor and optimism together. To me, that was really, really cool too. Anyhow, I can't remember exactly how the inspiration came into play. A lot of people have personally told me, whether that's like personally, like approached me, or whether that's through social media and email, messages, things like that. People have told me in the past, they look up to me, I'm an inspiration, or I inspired them in some way. And anyhow, so I thought about Victor. I can't remember if it was like Vicspiration or something like that. Anyhow, Victor the Inspiration came into play. And that's how Victor the Inspiration, the name, came into fruition. I did an Instagram poll and I did a vote on having my current audience at that time, which is mainly like my high school, which is like family and friends from like high school and my upbringing, and they voted. And anyhow, Victor the Inspiration was most voted, and I personally did like Victor the Inspiration a lot more as well. So I ran with it. When I did this, I can't remember if it was exactly, I want to say it was more like 2019, somewhere within that year. I don't want to say 2018 because I was doing other things at that time. If anything, it was probably like the end of 2018, but I feel strongly it was like around 2019, Victor the Inspiration came to light in a sense. Anyhow, so how did VictorTheInspiration.com come into play? In the year 2020 of January 2020, I went through like a really, really dark time. A lot of stuff was happening from the previous months. To say the least, I was in a very dark place mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like it was a rough battle up here. I was losing the fight after all these years. Anyhow, I haven't fully talked about what happened behind the scenes. I haven't really gone full in depth as to what happened and what took place, and I haven't really gone in depth within that period, and I haven't shared it publicly. I shared portions of it, but not entirely everything. The reason being is because there's a lot of questions that I've had, and I haven't quite found all of my answers just yet. However, I have looked for a lot of questions, and I have found a large portion of answers to a lot of my questions, that I was able to have some form of closure in a sense. Basically a deeper understanding as to why that took place. Anyhow, I don't want to lose you guys here, but anyhow, eventually we'll talk about it. More so, I think it'll be in my book, whenever I decide to publish a book. I think strongly it'll probably be my second book. I don't think it'll be my first. Anyhow, that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother topic about that. Maybe even a documentary. Maybe if I'm sitting down with like someone with a big name like Oprah, maybe I don't know if she still does sit downs. Like Oprah, Steve Harvey, something like that. I'd probably go in depth with if they can ask the right questions. Deep questions. Excuse me. Anyhow, so eventually we'll talk about that. But how did Victortheinspiration came in Victortheinspiration.com came into light? Anyhow, again, I was going through a really, really dark time, a very tough time. After all these years, I was pretty much losing the fight, to say the least, after everything I've been through. And anyhow, a good friend of mine, I will never forget, a really good friend of mine that I had met being in the hospital, and he reached out to me. He was a RT, and anyhow, he reached out to me, and he found out what was going on and what I was going through, and he personally called me up, and we were just talking for a while. And I remember we were talking, and I was just at the time I was staying with my aunt at the time, and anyhow, so I was driving around the neighborhood and had my earphones in, and I was talking to him, just driving around the neighborhood, and we were just talking about a variety of different things. And he told me, and I'll never forget, he said, why don't you, something along these lines, he says, why don't you, he says, don't look at it so much in the negative way. He says, what's the positive with what's happening? Look, what's the positive here? And at the time, I really couldn't find one. Excuse me. I've always been optimistic, but I was losing the fight. I was in a dark place, and I couldn't find the positive out of that current situation. And anyhow, so we're just talking back and forth, and he says, well, why don't you create awareness for what it is you've gone through? And because I was placed on 5150, which is basically a California way to say you lost your mind. And anyhow, and he was like, why don't you create a website? Because he knew I'd done websites in the past. Why don't you create a website and spread like a 5150 awareness? Talk about it, how and things like that. Spread light on it, basically. Create a light within the dark. He meant, or he had said. And I thought about it, and it really sat with me for quite some time. Anyhow, so we get off the phone. I'm driving around this neighborhood. I'm just brainstorming, okay? And I was thinking to myself, okay, so I can create a website. To me, that's simple. I've created websites before. I can create one matter of minutes, And anyhow, so then I thought bigger. I remember thinking about all night, and I was thinking, think bigger. What kind of website can I create? Sure, I can't talk about 5150 awareness and things like that. But at the current state of where I was at, I really haven't quite crawled out of this hole that I was in. So I really didn't think I had the ability to really help someone climb out of the hole if I yet myself haven't climbed out of this hole that I had dug myself into, to say the least. Anyhow, so I was brainstorming, and I thought about it, and I can't remember if this light had came in within that night, or I want to say it took about a few days of me brainstorming on it. Anyhow, I started thinking bigger, and I was like, talk about my story. And that's how it kind of came into play. I kind of wanted to talk and tell. I wanted to tell and talk about my story. And there's another friend of mine, really good friend of mine, and he had reached out to me, and he had published his own book called American Greed, by Mike Rothberg. Excuse me, brother, if I'm saying your last name wrong, but his name is Mike, and he published his own book named called American Greed. It's a really good book. Anyhow, I asked him, how did you write your book? And then he gave me some pointers on how to create a book. So then I attempted to write about my story to potentially release my first book. As I'm writing this, at the time I was in, I was like, I don't want to talk too much about this yet, because again, I feel like I haven't fully overcame that particular mountain just yet. I don't feel like I'm there yet. I feel like I'm still climbing up this particular mountain that I haven't yet conquered. And since I haven't done so yet, I didn't feel like I was able to instruct someone else on how to conquer their mountain when I yet haven't conquered my own. If I hope I explain that correctly in this video. And anyhow, so he gave me pointers, and as I started writing, I started creating different things. Anyhow, at the end of it, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just, this is just gonna be like a simple trailer in a sense, in a movie perspective. This is just gonna be like a little teaser, a little trailer. This is what I went through, and I wanted it to be, yes, my story. I wanted to have some form of humor in there. Humor is the best medicine. Laughter is the best medicine. And I wanted to have all these different things in it. Anyhow, so that's how, if you go to my website, Victortheinspiration.com, the first thing you're going to see is Victor's life story. And that's how that came into play. And anyhow, so that's how this is how Victortheinspiration.com came into play. Shout out to a really good friend of mine and family and friends. They helped pull me out of this darkness that I was in. And I'm a spiritual guy, so, and again, I'll talk about it more later, and when I'm ready. And yeah, I'm very fortunate to overcome that particular journey. It hasn't been easy. It was very, very difficult. Me, fortunately, for being where I am, I can reflect on it, and or not just that particular situation or event or season. I can reflect off of my past and be very humbled and grateful and fortunate to be where I am now, because the old Victor, who was in that dark place, did not see that the Victor that you are hearing and seeing through the screen, maybe even reading the subtitles, because some people potentially might not be able to hear. I'm very fortunate. The old Victor knows that this Victor shouldn't exist. I was in a very dark place, a very scary place. So as I reflect off of that season, as I reflect off of my past in general, with all of my hospitalizations, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to say the least, very, very fortunate to be here. And anyhow, I wanted to end this video saying, I came up with a lot of sayings, a lot of quotes. Most of you will potentially know me as, I like posting quotes and things and such. One of my favorites is grow through what you go through. That had such a huge meaning as to how I overcame a lot. Grow through what you go through. I made videos on this previously. You could check the channel, and it helped a lot. I came up with another saying, which is, you may not understand it now, but one day you will. And that came from a place within me that reflect off of not just that experience, but off of a lot of past experiences. And for me, if I had came across that when I was in that dark place, it would have shedded some light, some form of light that would have helped me to continue pushing forward. Basically bringing me hope, I won't understand what it is I'm going through right now, but, I know that there is something that I'm currently going through that is leading me somewhere that I can't even imagine. It's leading me somewhere that I wouldn't have gone to otherwise. Anyhow, that saying came from that. I came up with another saying, life is like a road. Some are smooth, some are rough. But if you eventually keep moving forward, you will find yourself back on a smooth one. And basically that quote, again, came from a part of me where no matter where you are, keep moving forward. You are not going to get out of whatever it is you are in the midst of if you quit. If you put your vehicle on park, you can't expect to move ahead. You can't expect to have a change of environment. Keep moving forward. I came up with a lot of sayings, a lot of quotes. Anyhow, I need water. I'm gonna take some water after this video. My mouth is dry. Anyhow, I wanted to make this video. I hope this video was able to bring some form of value to you. This video is a bit more personal. It's more of me talking while I reflect off of my past. And yeah, as I make these videos, I want to mention that I reflect off of all of my videos. I try to find ways that I can improve my communication, things that I didn't do that I should have, things that I didn't say but I should have, or things that I did say but I could have worded a bit differently. I'm always looking for ways to improve. Anyhow, I hope this video was able to bring some form of value to you. And yeah, I don't know the title of this video just yet, but whatever it is, I hope it was able to bring some form of value to you. Again, this video is a bit more personal. It's more about me. And yeah, I hope it can bring some form of value, whether it be big or small. Anyhow, I'm gonna end this video with this. If you can remember anything from this video, I want you to remember this. You may not understand it now, but one day you will. Know that where you are isn't where you always will be. Remember, grow through what you go through. Much love.